We might be living in a simulation, guys, because a straight to streaming Tubi exclusive movie has made its way into my top 5 horror films of the year. That's not something I had in my 2024 bingo card, and if you would have told me that months ago, I would have thought you did plenty of drugs. That's the world we live in, I guess. This movie that nobody knew came out, nobody's heard of, nobody's talking about. I'm going to talk about it today. It's called Lowlifes.
It's time for this evening's entertainment.
So Lowlifes is a Tubi exclusive that randomly dropped months ago, and the only reason I know about this film is because one of my followers commented I should check it out, do a review, and one other pretty big YouTube channel, he's the only guy I've ever seen talk about it, he mentioned it in one of his horror movie lists of the year, and my response went something like this when he mentioned it. What the fuck is Lowlifes? But upon hearing that, I felt inclined to check it out, and I would describe it as something of a mix of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just with a lot of comedic value. Because what this film's about is it follows this family taking an RV on vacation across country from California, and they end up somewhere rural in the woods. I'm not exactly sure where this takes place. If they mentioned it, I missed it. But they're having lunch one day outside the RV holding a barbecue, when these two hillbillies show up asking for their missing brother, and these guys are just completely unsettling, complete degenerates, aptly named title of the movie, Lowlifes. These are two guys, if you ran into, they would immediately unsettle you. You want to get the fuck out of Dodge, because these guys are very strange. They're eating bugs, they have weapons, they're kind of interested in the teenage daughter of this family, which completely unsettles the family and the dad. They just want these two guys to leave. But they're very persuasive, and they want this family to give one of the brothers a ride into town so they can look for their brother, and they seemingly convince them to do so, where this family will end up spending the night at this very weird family's rural farmstead, which will become a sinister tale of survival. And starting off with what I really liked about this film, this is a movie that feels very familiar but very fresh at the same time. It's not going to completely reinvent the wheel, so if you watch a lot of horror films, you'll see stuff like this sometimes. But I also think it's done really well, and I can always appreciate whenever a movie just sticks whatever it's trying to do, because this is one of those films that definitely diverts your expectations. You think it's going left, but it zigs right. There's a lot of what I like to call mini twists in this, where it's constantly keeping you guessing where it's going to go, diverting expectations. Another example of this earlier this year was Oddity. They take a scare setup, or they take a prop and set it up in front of you, and you think as a seasoned horror fan, you know where this is going to go, but then it goes a different way. And I can appreciate whenever a film can do that and mislead you as a viewer. I think this film is very creative in how it chooses to go, how it evolves as it goes on. It does about 3 or 4 changes throughout that I thought were fresh and original every time, and I had a lot of fun with it. And that's another key word to this one, fun, because you can tell the cast in this and whoever made this or wrote this is having a ton of fun, especially a couple of characters in this. The dad in this film is laugh out loud funny. I thought his character was kind of over the top, but also incredibly well acted for what he's asked to do. And I thought the bond he had with his daughter and his son were very memorable amongst horror characters. So when you have characters you want to root for and characters that you're going to spend a lot of time with, I think this film has really good characters for the most part, in which basically every character in the movie, both from the family and the farmstead house they go to, are all very memorable. Again, so 2 thumbs up from me. Whenever you have characters that are memorable, it makes the stakes that you're getting them involved with in horror films feel that much more impactful. So I really enjoyed it. Those of us who have dabbled with Tubi exclusives know acting being good in them is not always the case, so I have to point it out, surprisingly good. I also really like the setup to this thing. Now, I described these 2 hillbillies talking to the family, trying to get a ride into town, and a lot of the struggle to horror movie setups is how characters act. Do they do stupid decisions? Are they just coerced easily? I found the setup to this film and how it gets to the general premise of getting to this farmstead to be very believable. The way these characters acted, the way these hillbillies kind of coerced this family into doing what they want them to do, it felt very unavoidable. You know, sometimes you have that situation where you can just drive off. These 2 kind of felt smothering in their approach of how they wanted to ask for a favor from this family. Again, a small detail that I think goes a long way, because you can get taken out of it very early on for thinking a movie's just unbelievable, corny, fake. I thought this movie did the setup good enough and well above average compared to a lot of films that just cut corners trying to get you to the centric story they're trying to unfold. Because when you have these 2 guys that are armed and they're just all over you in the backwoods where you're unfamiliar with, and you don't really want confrontation because your family's around, there was just a lot of that dynamic that I thought was really easy to buy into how this story even gets going. Again, needed to point that out. I also thought this film was very effective when it came to foreshadowing, because it will show you something in the future of what's going to happen, or lead you to believe what you think's going to happen, bounce you back and forth between the perspective of a couple of characters, setting up what you think's going to happen, and then diverting it from time to time. So what you thought that foreshadow meant is not actually what it meant. And this movie does that a couple of times, and I thought it was really effective to keep you on your toes, engaged with where this thing is going to end up going. And when you get to the actual house where the majority of these events take place in the survival tale, I thought it was all really effective and really fun because, again, you have characters acting in reasonable enough ways where you have characters doing things to other characters, the way the kills are set up, very believable, even though it is over the top at points and it's obviously supposed to be comedic at points. I thought it was realistic enough that everybody involved would have acted the way they did. I don't think anybody was really a standout in just being the village idiot who you know is just fodder. I thought every character, based on events that happened to them, actually acted like I would act in that situation, which again is 2 thumbs up from me. And I haven't even gotten around to mention yet, this is a horror movie for sure, so Gorehounds, you will be pleased, because starting with the opening scene of this film within 30 seconds, holy shit is this movie brutal at times. This movie has some absolutely fantastic practical effects at points, some awesome kills, very bloody, very gory if that's your thing. In fact, I would go as far as to say this movie is not for the faint of heart. This movie gets pretty extreme at points, so if that's something you are interested in or worried about, be warned, it does get pretty graphic. Again, pretty surprising for a streaming exclusive to pull that off, but I think this movie does that. Also happy to report, I thought the ending of this film was awesome. It's going to be divisive. I looked up reviews before I made my review, and there were quite a few people who were not a fan of the ending of this film. I thought the ending awesome. I really love the route they choose to go. Feels like a lot of horror movies nowadays don't really know what they want to be. They don't have an idea in mind. This movie feels like it knows exactly how it wants to end and it goes for it, and I think it sticks it. Really, the only negative I have to this movie, maybe if a minor negative, is that I feel like it drags on a little bit too long during the middle. When you're getting to this household, you're meeting the characters, getting integrated. It takes a little bit of time to pick up, and I kind of felt it 5 minutes or so at points, nothing too tragic. And then a little bit towards the end, right before the major ending I just praised, it probably does linger on about 5 to 10 minutes too long there as well. Again, nothing extreme, something a lot of people probably won't even notice, just a little bit of a pacing thing if I had to fish for a negative I think stood out. Everything else, honestly, I really enjoyed. So overall, guys, I had a really good time with Lowlifes. If you trust my recommendations, I think it's at least worth your time checking out, giving it a chance. I don't really know how this happened. I don't know where this movie came from, how it just landed on Tubi. I don't know how it's a streaming movie that has this good of acting, really good practical effects, really good kills. I love the ending of it. The only minor negative I said maybe is that pacing thing, but I'm willing to overlook it. I think Lowlifes is worth buying on Blu-ray. So have you guys seen or heard of this one? If you have, comment down below, let me know, or let me know if my description of it makes it seem interesting enough to check out. As always, if you haven't subscribed, join me down below. I'd love to have you, but that's all I got in this video. Peace!